Hello and welcome to Travel Market Live, where we look at what's happening across the travel market and speak to some of our contacts to find out how they are addressing the market at this time. It's incredibly difficult. We're all in lockdown. We're all working from home, but there's still things that we need to do to make sure that we're ready for when travelers return again. And different markets are behaving in different ways. There have been different levels of restrictions on movement. There's been different approaches in the way that they handle their economies. And it's a big question is going to be of when will the travel market open up again? Now, we're already looking at it's going to be several weeks or even a few months before things will get moving, and even fully moving, we're looking at more than a year. But we're going to be speaking to Daan de Brujn today, who is from Bookboost, a guest messaging platform based in Sweden. Now, hi, Daan. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Ryan. I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much. The sun is shining. That's the one thing I have to be grateful at the moment. How is it over there in Sweden? Because you actually haven't had a lockdown like we have in the UK and much of the rest of Europe.
We haven't, yeah. Yeah, in that sense, I guess Sweden is a little bit different than most countries in Europe. And perhaps one of the advantages here is that there is a bit more, it's as simple as that, perhaps, that there's a bit more space. So people by nature are a bit more distant. And there has been recommendations from the government. So no regulations, but recommendations. And so far that's working well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a bit of talk, especially here in the UK, about how Sweden's approach has been quite unique. And as you say, it's the culture of the people that makes a big difference. So people are talking about how Italy perhaps managed to be a victim quite quickly because of the number of kisses and hugs that people give. Do you think that has a lot to do with it, or is it just a matter that a lot of Swedish tend to just have a different sort of lifestyle, or it's just the fact that there's less people in the country?
Could very much be the case. I believe Swedes are very, very warm people, very family oriented. That said, at the same time, like leaving the apartment, I've never seen one of my neighbors in the hallway, you know? So it's kind of like when you leave your apartment and your neighbor hears that and they would want to go out too, they would rather wait a minute. So this kind of not social distancing, but keeping it a bit distance, not minding each other's business. It's something that's in the DNA of Swedish people, I would say. And in this case, that's an advantage because it's not spread as easily, probably indeed, as in countries like Italy. Yeah, I believe so.
And with your team as well, are you guys still working from the office because you're able to, or are you spending more time now working from home?
Yeah, we're all of us are home most of the time. Luckily for us, that was already into our routine, into our working habits. So in that sense, not a big change, but of course, it's different digital as you've experienced it as well. I mean, all these meetings digitally, it's a different energy than having a meeting in real life, right? So, but yeah, most of us are home, yeah.
And you've got a guest messaging platform that specifically for hotels to allow them to keep in contact with their guests. So how have your hotels had to respond at this time? How have you had to manage your customers and their expectations of the product and what you can deliver them?
Yeah. I mean, when COVID really started to hit us, obviously the first thing we did was to reach out to our customers and talk to them how this impacts them, and that was kind of a process, like it also for some change from week to week. And we've been just being there available for them to try and see where we can help. And I think particularly for us, and that's a little bit in our advantage, I would say, our concept, digital communication, is actually still quite useful, even for hotels that are closed at the moment. They can still use the tool to be virtually open, if you can say so. and be in touch with their guests using communication channels, or be in touch with future potential guests that are perhaps at home thinking about their next trips. I mean, this will be over at some point, right? So that's at least, I believe, the mindset that many people have. And to still be available and accessible for these kind of future guests is something that's useful for our customers. So in that sense, I guess from our company's perspective, we are a little bit fortunate, and we're happy that we can still add value for the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at a time when digital communications is everything, we're all working from home. We all need internet access. We all need to be able to have access to the applications and systems that we use at work. Again, being able to communicate with guests, they're not able to walk into the hotel. They might not be able to phone the hotel. Certainly some phone systems don't allow to divert calls to other lines, etc. So I guess this is where the magic of guest messaging comes in, but also that ongoing movement in society that we're moving more towards this quick text approach in communication. And have you been seeing that with some of your hotels? I mean, I guess, as you say, they've had to deal with huge numbers of cancellations, postponements. There must have been a lot of concerned customers out there about what would happen to their booking. So are we seeing more people contact using, I guess, these new forms of consumer messaging than more traditional styles like email?
Yeah, I mean, for what we can see from our customers, definitely, for the reason that it's just convenient to be able to reach out with just like a few clicks away. You send your message. You can often like get automated flows where you can already like get answers to your most frequently asked questions and so on. So it's really convenient. Perhaps maybe now more than ever, where there is a lot of uncertainty, and when you've made a booking and you want to know what's up. I mean, with our solution, you can make a pre-filled flow for that, so that it's easy for the guests to get that information, and that's really key. Like to be clear and to be easily accessible, and for the guest perspective, and to get their to know for them what's up. And I don't know for other hotels. We've had like a number of conversations with hotels that do not use Bookboost today, who kind of share that like they got, I wouldn't call it a wake up call, but a little bit of a push to realize that, okay, hold on, it's really time for us to think about our digital setup. And I mean, even now, but also when the market picks up again, if you can just like processes that don't necessarily add value, right? Like I think that person to person contact will never really, and I hope it will never really vanish, and it will always add value. But all these recurring processes, like those you can cut out. And I think that's something that the industry has to look into, and that the industry will look into, maybe now with a push due to COVID.
I mean, it's interesting you talk about this automation process, because the automation is something that's really been developing and evolving over the last decade now, and it's gaining that confidence to bring it into the business place. We see a lot of the automation with the at-home Echo devices, where people can ask questions, get an answer. A lot of consumers have started to perhaps use them without necessarily realizing how these automation systems quite naturally add efficiencies to their own personal lives. But do you think there's been a bit of a disconnect between how businesses see the use of these tools and how consumers are using these tools?
Yes and no. I think markets, it's quite a difference between different markets. Some markets have adopted these kind of new technologies more than others. But then there's, in each market, there's the more forward-thinking ones that are generally speaking more open to new technologies. In our opinion, it's a matter of time that like technologies that are out there, that are on the phone, everything is going more to mobile. Everything has to be more instant. It has to be convenient. People want to take decisions fast. and yeah, that all calls for new technologies. So yeah, a disconnect. Yeah, yes and no. It depends a bit on the market, I would say. So I think it's really interesting to also look at markets that are more developed in regards to that, and also to for us as an industry to look at other industries such as like the airline industry that is typically a few steps ahead of the hotel industry, and that have adopted new technologies. And I can really feel the difference from a consumer perspective. I love to fly with KLM, for instance, who is really good with consumer experience in my experience. And so yeah, it depends a bit, but I think that one good thing that we can take from this unfortunate situation is that there's a lot of opportunities out there, and hopefully we all have a little bit of time now to think about it, to reflect on our businesses, and to maybe build a bridge between the disconnect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it just speeds things up. If people aren't doing their day-to-day tasks, they've got that time to really look at exploring new opportunities and new ways of doing things. And it's starting to become a subject, a topic matter now, much more within some of the webinars and webcasts, as they stop looking at sort of the data or trying to predict what's going to happen in the market. It's more about, okay, what is happening right now? How are we able to ride the storm? How are we able to become more intelligent in the way that we're using these tools around us? I mean, these are tools to help us do our job. These aren't tools to replace us in our particular role. One particular example I remember seeing last year when I was at World Travel Market was Radisson Edwardian Hotels and their guest service app, Edward, and it acts as a digital concierge. It's fully automated. It's interesting when the tech lead who was presenting his design, because they built it all internally, which I believe is not too different to the sort of functionality and features that Bookboost offers. But how people actually believed there was actually a person called Edward working at the hotel, because it just showed how personal these tools were. It showed how responsive and how accurate they were at being able to answer some of these questions that are much more automated, and being able to then route them to an individual if the question was perhaps more unique and didn't have a direct, clear answer. Whilst at the same time being able to process all the requests that the guest has, from wanting to book spa or breakfast or a later stay. And these are certainly some of the things that you've talked to me about in the past, and I've certainly seen some case examples of some of the ways that your hotels and hostels have seen a great advantage from being able to have that dialogue with the guest when that guest isn't actually in the hotel, and not bombard them with emails, but with short, sharp, sweet messages that get to the point.
Right. Yeah.
Is that the way communication is going now? I mean, we've all had these social conventions of being incredibly polite and nice, but the way that people exchange text messages is inherently different to where we write an email. When you write an email, hi, sir, you introduce, you ask the question, you summarize, you thank, and say goodbye. Do you see the same thing in text messaging?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, a lot of hotels ask us, so they have the same challenges. Like, we want to be able to have more touch points with our guests. Some hotels they just see their guests at check-in and check-out, right? And then that's the opportunities they can engage with their guests, unless they proactively like somehow reach out to them. So they're really looking for tools like, how can we find something that we can realize that engagement and generate that and drive that more, but at the same time, like, we have our operations. How do we do that without like having to increase too much? And I mean, they can't hire new employees, they can't ask their current employees to work more, etc. So how can you do that at scale? We always say, like, we enable hotels to build a personal relationship with each of their guests, And how do you do that at scale? Because you can't spend that time with everyone, right? And you can't write that email that you're talking about with each guest. And I have to say, like, this messaging concept, I'm of course an enthusiast about that. But I really, really like that this is now finally being adopted more and more by the industry, because it brings a whole lot new like field of opportunities. Because you can work with a lot of data, you can automate large chunks of it. Also, when you have such solution in place, you will see that you will get less phone calls and less emails. So you actually free space up to engage. And then when you, like, going back to those recurring processes, when you automate that and when your operations are really on point, so you don't lose time on that, you can use these tools to do that. And then you have more time to spend quality time with your guests. And that's what it's all about, to build a personal relationship, be able to, like, someone comes and they want an experience. Like today, a rich life, it doesn't mean, uh, it doesn't really mean materialistic that much anymore, but it's more a life full of experiences. That's considered to be a rich life more and more, and that will only develop in that direction. So using technology to be on top of all that boring stuff, all the recurring stuff, and then freeing up time to actually, like, create memories, create experiences. That's what we see is happening, and I'm just super excited for the hospitality industry with that
Yeah,
development.
because you're effectively a startup for a young business, been going just a few years. What worries or hopes do you have now on the back of the situation that we're in? And there's been a lot of talk about, you know, the investment market, the impact it's going to have on startups. Some saying that this is a great time to be a startup because the ability to be much more flexible, the fact that you're working on perhaps you're working, you know, maybe you don't have to worry about the revenue that needs to come in so much as necessary about getting your product out into the market and solving that problem. But certainly over the last few weeks, when you've spoken to other entrepreneurs and other startups, sort of how do you see the opportunities there, and how are you prepared now to see through the next few months?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, looking at other companies, and I've spoken to some. I believe every company is unique, and everyone has their own unique challenges. And also looking at the concept, some are more applicable than others and more easily, like, usable also in these kind of situations than others. So that depends a bit on what kind of company it is. But what I generally see is that, especially referring to companies in the hospitality tech world, that almost all companies that I know, they're really looking into how can we make our product useful during this time now, and they're also super flexible in trying to offer that to the market. So I really recommend, like, every hotelier out there to do some research, look into what kind of systems can help them, and try to contact these companies, because I'm sure that they can be flexible, and they really position themselves. I mean, it's tough for hospitality tech companies as it's tough for hotels. I think that's also part of it. Like, we all need to realize that it's difficult for everyone, but they really position themselves as being a resource to be available to help out. And yeah, I think that's really a nice thing. But then at the same time, it's challenging. I mean, for startups, I don't know if I can say particularly. Like, I think for each company, it's difficult now. And but obviously, as a startup, you want to grow and move forward. And like, I think it's important to still create opportunity, to not stand still. And yeah, for us, I consider ourselves fortunately, because our concept does apply still. But at the same time, I mean, it's a challenging situation for anyone, and I just hope it doesn't take too long. And I think it's important, or at least that's what we believe in, to be realistic, to be transparent, but also to keep a positive mindset, because we need to keep believing in that better time in the future. I think it's very important.
And as you say, there is time now when people aren't doing a day-to-day, they aren't distracted by guests on the floor, to be able to explore some of these new technologies. And as you mentioned, there's a whole plethora of vendors out there who are offering special offers at this particular time, either try for free or free until you get to a certain usage or a certain occupancy, whether they've got rid of their subscription charges and just charging commissions. So obviously you won't get anything until your first booking, which is great because at least you get a bit more familiar with it. You yourselves at Bookboost also have an offer that it's available for free for all hotels until the end of June. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what other ways are you helping? What resources are you providing?
Yeah, so we try to let the market know that we are there. We can have a chat. I mean, most of our team is available. We can share experiences. We can think along with the hotelier just to try and see where we can help. I think that's all we can do in these times. And then other than that, we have a set of resources that we're working on. So we do a webinar every Wednesday at 3 p.m. To try and, I mean, that's from our perspective, to try and share, like, how does Bookboost guest messaging, how could that help in these times? And like you said, it's a free offer. The webinars are for free. The tool can be used for free. It's a resource that's out there for grabs. I would say try to make use of it because it's available and it can really help. Like, communication is key, relationships are key. And then, like, hotels in the industry can get out of this with as little impact. Of course, that's what we all try to do, and we try to also contribute from our side to where we can. That's our mindset in our company. Yeah.
And do you have any advice for any other resources or webcasts, webinars that you could recommend the industry to tap into, find out a bit more about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my LinkedIn is full of these kind of resources at the moment. I'm really impressed by all other companies that are, like, so open and working on content creation and looking into market and trying to make sense and trying to share that knowledge. So for instance, there's quite some good resources on SiteMinder, and they also organize a webinar, which is next Thursday at 11 a.m. Central European time. Generally speaking, I believe to get a good overview, Hotel Tech Report is really useful because they categorize all different companies. So if you are in this situation where you're thinking of, okay, I want to think a little bit, like, just reflect on my organization, and I want to get some sort of overview what's out there, then I would go to Hotel Tech Report, sign up for companies, follow them on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure they will do a webinar as well, or share, like, resources to educate the market. I think it's a good time now to sit back, think a little bit, and use the time to educate yourself and to try to do better when we get out of this. So and then, of course, like I mentioned, we do our webinars on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. So anyone is welcome to join that, to educate yourself more about online guest communications. That's the main topic of the series. There's tons at the moment.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Daan, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And if people want to find out a bit more about the guest messaging platform and the free offer, they can visit bookboost.io.
Yes, you got it.
More than all the details are there.
Send us a message. We're here. Have a look on the website. Sign up for the webinars. Anything that can help. Like, we're here. Yeah. And thank you very much, Ryan, for having me in this talk show today. I wish you all the best.
No problem. Thank you very much indeed, Daan. So thanks, guys, for joining us today for this particular episode for Travel Market Life. For all the resources, do get in contact with us. Look out for the following episode due very soon. This show was produced by Haynes Marcons, broadcast on StreamYard, available on YouTube and as a podcast. The music is by Dano Songs. Thanks again.